So you bought an older, previous, loved plane and you don't know what to do with it? Well, that's what we're going to cover in this video, possibly video series. And this aircraft is a BVM Super Bandit aircraft. It has been previously flown, but it does not have many flights on it. So this video series is going to be fairly compact and straightforward. The point of this series is to give you guys an idea what to look for, maybe what to replace, maybe what to refurbish when you have a scenario like this. So step number one on an aircraft like this is essentially strip everything out of the aircraft. Now I don't know the age of this aircraft, but it is probably, if I had to guess, more than 10 years old. All of the air system in there, the servos, everything in the aircraft is getting stripped out and everything is getting replaced. So it'll essentially be a shell with all brand new equipment installed. Now we did a full build on a Super Bandit recently. This is essentially the same kit, but not quite sure of the construction methods at this point. And we are going to be powering this aircraft with a Chikoi 160. So it won't be quite the superstar of the other one, but it's going to be a very speedy plane. So let's take a look at the equipment that we're putting in this aircraft as a first step. All right, starting left to right here, we've got these beautiful foil bags, which are no good. So I just got an email yesterday. The Revic bags we ordered for the Super Bandit are en route very soon, and of course that's the best way to protect your aircraft from hangar rash, from transport rash. So we've got a set of bags coming for the Super Bandit. We've also got a set of bags coming for, where are you there? Oh, right there, the Picaro 2.0 as well. So we'll show you guys all that stuff when it arrives. But that's the first and most important thing for transporting your aircraft. Working left to right here again, we've got an SBEC 30. So this plane is going to be set up with our single battery system. And don't worry, even with one battery powering everything, it doesn't fall out of the sky. It's proven. So we've got the Jetty SBEC 30. Reason for the SBEC 30 is we're going to have a 3-cell LiPo battery that powers the turbine directly. Through the SBEC, that powers all the electronics in the aircraft, which drops the voltage to 8.4 consistent volts. So that SBEC is going to plug into our Rex 12. We've got a Rex 7 as a clone receiver or secondary receiver. We've got an M-speed sensor we're putting in the nose. Cortex Pro, of course, because this is absolutely the best way to integrate with Jetty products. We've got a Jetronics valve. This is for the brakes, I believe. Yes, this is a low-loss brake valve. We've got the Chikoi two-way valve for the doors. We've got one of the high-flow EvoJet valves for the landing gear on this aircraft. That'll all be controlled by the Chikoi sequencer, fail-safe unit, great little unit. And our servos on the aircraft are all MKS servos, so we've got 9930s everywhere on the aircraft, and great way to outfit the Super Bandit. The aircraft will be piloted with, of course, a Jetty radio, and the owner's got his new DS24G2, which is what this aircraft's going to be set up on. Now the things we're waiting for on this aircraft are, number one, the Chikoi turbine. That is a 160 Newton turbine. That's going to be powering this aircraft. That's en route right now. We've got a DreamWorks order as well for a couple air fittings, the screw-in fittings for the wing, and some airline from DreamWorks as well. So I'm pretty sure that covers everything. There'll be lots of little bits and bytes throughout the project that we change and modify, but there she is. So beautiful plane, was painted by LGM Graphics on the west coast of Canada, and very, very nice Super Bandit. We've got some beautiful artwork on the tail and just a great looking plane. So as a first step, a couple months ago, we pulled the servos out of this aircraft. The previous owner of this aircraft, one of the parts of the deal was he got his servos back. So all of the servos have been pulled out already. That's done. I can't even remember what was in here, but we're starting fresh. So definitely a cool Super Bandit as far as the paint job goes. The layout on the inside is also nice, but we'll be redoing everything. Hatch, normal hatch setup on this guy. We've got a cockpit built in there as well too, which is kind of cool. And there we go. So it's a fairly current setup, I think, on this guy. Just looking at the layout of everything, but we've got our trays and stuff built in here, which we are not going to be reusing. We're going to go with a more simplified setup on everything. And yeah, so all of this stuff will be taken out, but I'm just giving you guys a shot here of what our pre-work looks like. So we'll also be painting the inside of this aircraft just like our other Super Bandit. And UAT on this one is mounted right there. I think we're probably going to switch that out to be up front. We also need some nose weight, so that's a good reason to put the UAT up here, which is just like what we did on the red Super Bandit. And we'll have one battery mounted in the nose of the aircraft. So there it is. Now we did take a lot of this equipment and stuff out previously just to get all the servos out, but we do have to essentially strip this guy all the way down, and we're going to start fresh. So this is one of the first steps we're going to do. So we're going to pull the bypass out, the pipe out, the tanks out, fuel system, all of this stuff needs to come out. And then on our wings, we're going to pull everything out again. We're going to service the gear. We're going to switch the servos out. Those have all been done previously, or the servos have been taken out. So lots to do on this old girl. And a little while later, there's all the stuff stripped out of the aircraft. So we've got the wiring, the tubing, tanks, front gear, all that stuff's out. Bypass, of course, pipes out, pipes sitting over there. One of the things that I'm kind of doing on this aircraft is something a little bit different. Normally when we would start a build or a assembly on the channel, we would start off with getting our radio set up and getting the servos cycling and things like that. We're not doing that on this plane because we kind of want to get the core parts of the plane figured out first. So I want to get all the fixes figured out. I'll show you one of those fixes in a minute here. I want to get the trays figured out, the painting of the inside of the fuselage figured out so we can get all that done and then start putting the equipment in. So I've taken a look at the plane and everything is very similar to the last one that we did. The only difference is our blocks right here. So these are the rear wing blocks that hold the square spar of the wings. So there's the front one and the rear one. The rear one is in the channel that we're talking about right now. So on the red version of this plane, the ultra fast one that we did, these were made out of metal. So they were a custom piece. These are all kind of molded inside. Well, this is molded plastic. There's like a nut retained in there. And over time, that nut tends to come out. This is the one fixing bolt for those rear pieces. Now, we're going a little bit over and above. Now, I did some of this yesterday. I basically sanded down the bracket in the high sol area that you can see. All that high sol is brand new. And I got that high sol installed yesterday. Installed the bolt and then took the bolt out, sanded this all down. And the reason I was doing that is I just wanted a nice big base around the retainer for our captured nut that's in there. And then what we're doing is we've got the same wing fixing bolt and I've put a blind nut on there and again sanded this all down so we'll have good contact. We are going to mix up some more high sol, get it installed around the blind nut, fasten this guy down, and then capture that blind nut inside the high sol. So the point of doing this is we're basically creating two sets of threads and hopefully keeping that one that's captured in there permanently captured and we don't have this piece pulling out and destroying itself. Otherwise, the rest of the aircraft is up to par. Everything's done like we did on the red one, and things are going really well. We've got our metal blocks back here for the elevators, metal blocks for the vertical stabs, so happy with the rest of the aircraft. All right, so we kind of have our basic layout done here for all of our reinforcements and changes in the front. So we've got our blind nuts installed there, which is what we did last. And what else did we do here? Oh, I forgot our little tab covers, our little hole covers here. Those are something we did on the previous Super Bandit. So they're just done on one side. So when you go to put your tool in there, your tool comes at an angle like this, and you're able to tighten those guys up. But it covers the hole, which apparently can make some funny noises or whatnot. We've got our front end fixed up here. So I did I think this is about a 1/4 inch piece of maple, and I glued that across the former work here. The point of that is to level this plate out. So we're going to have our equipment plates on the side, and those equipment plates need to be level in relation to the aircraft. So we took our electronic square like this, squared it to the wing support, and then confirmed that the hatch opening here is also square, which it is. And then I took a piece of wood and ran it across and got our measurement, and then that was square as well. So now when we put our equipment trays on there, our Cortex, which is ultimately why we're doing it for, is going to be level. So this one's going to be a little bit different than our previous Super Bandit. So our previous Super Bandit, because it was all electronic, we just had the battery sitting in the front. So in this one, we're probably going to do the air tanks in the front because there's no other space for it. Then we're going to do a tray, a new tray, but here's the old one. So we're going to do a tray in this front section. So I kept all those supports, and that's where our battery is going to go. And I think our valves and stuff are going to go right in this area right there. So like air valves. So then on this tray, we'll probably have our battery, maybe something else, but our battery is essentially sitting right on that tray. So also went through and high-soled some of our other supports on the fuselage, like this guy, that guy, of course. So just to reinforce everything. So while we're waiting for the fuselage to cure and do its thing, took the left wing cover plate off and the gear out. So the point of taking the gear out is we need to make aluminum flex plates. That's one of the things the owner's done on all of his Super Bandits that he's owned. And what we do is we take this flex plate, draw it in aluminum, and cut it out in aluminum. And then this carbon piece here gets installed on the back side of the aluminum. I believe that's what we did. So we've got some aluminum stock here, which is the same thickness as the carbon flex plates, and this is what I make the aluminum plates out of. So the point of the aluminum plates is they'll bend, but they won't snap. The carbon plates, when they snap, what happens is the gear is so close to the top side of the wing, you'll often have the gear itself push up the wing, and you'll delaminate the top of the wing. So the benefit of the aluminum is it kind of gives you the warning or the pre-bend before it actually will damage the wing. That's the point of it. All right, so we got the flex plates done up here for our first set of main gear. So what we do here is we essentially make a set of flex plates out of the old ones, using them as a shape. So the old ones kind of had a round piece like this, and a piece like this. And what I do is I just take a piece of aluminum, trace that guy on there, but I keep a little bit more of the actual flex plate. So this fits in there no problem. And this goes on the landing gear just like that. And then what we'll do is, once we get these guys ready, is we're going to put some high sol on the carbon and aluminum piece, screw those guys together so they are glued, and then once they're cured, then we've got a stronger flex plate. So they are carbon and nuts to screw into. Everything is glued together, but we've got aluminum on the actual portions that attach to the wing itself. All right, guys, so the intention with this Super Bandit series here is not necessarily to do a build series or assembly series. It's more about to show you guys the stuff that we're doing to this aircraft in buying a used aircraft. So that's, I just want to clarify the point of that. So we got these guys glued together yesterday, so they're all good to go for installing this gear, which is good. So we got a bunch of things we're gonna kind of work on today. Today is Saturday, so we're gonna get that gear installed in the wing that we took it out of. We're gonna get this wing all set up and ready to go. So those things are coming. We are waiting for some different connectors, so we'll be getting the airlines to this point in the wing, and then we'll just be leaving them and waiting for those connectors to show up from DreamWorks. We got our plates all figured out and finished up here yesterday. So these need to be painted today. So today we're going to be working on the fuselage painting, which is going to be a big step. Also cut out this guy here and added a couple wood supports in the back part of that former there. Same thing we did on the red Super Bandit that we did. And some of our equipment's going to mount in this area here. Now, red Super Bandit, we ended up putting the fuel pump right here. We don't have that ability on this aircraft because the vent fitting, which we've taken out and we're going to be replacing, is exactly where our fuel pump was. So what we're going to end up doing, and I've kind of thought about this a little bit, is putting our fuel pump right in that spot there. It works out well because it doesn't interfere with anything, and yeah, should be a good solution, I think, to that. We just need to figure out our mounting system for it, and I think we're going to be going like this and mounting it on that former work. So that's where our fuel pump's going to mount. It'll stay out of the way of the gear and everything, and it clears the tank sitting right there as well. So with that fuel pump, we also have our engine that's going to be powering this aircraft. So we have a Chikoi 160 that's going in this aircraft. This was pulled out and sent to me by the owner. So this was being used in a different aircraft, and now it's going to be used in the Super Bandit. So yes, a 160 is a lot of power. The previous red one that we put together, it has a 195 in it, which is mental. So the 160 will definitely push this plane along very well, and it will be fun to fly, but it won't be stupid to fly. So I'm going to get a little bit of sanding done on this tray, which we're going to be reusing because it's the correct shape. So I'm going to get some sanding done on this guy just to smooth this out. We're going to get these guys primed, and then we will also start prepping off our fuselage to get sprayed black. All right, so working on the wing. As we go through this rebuild, we're going to be changing certain things on the aircraft. So in this case, we're keeping the stock clevis on the servo side. We're keeping the nice old control arm here, or turnbuckle, and we're putting a new MP Jets arm on this side. And just a little bit stronger on this side, a little more accurate. And of course, all of our wiring is getting changed. So the servo lead is going to be changed out as it comes to the root of the wing. So we've also got our servo prepared and ready to go. So those are some of the small changes. Some of the hardware we'll be keeping, like our elevator hardware as an example, we'll keep that as stock, but we will inspect everything and make sure that all of our joints and clevises and whatnot are 100%. All right, so we've got our first aileron set up here, and a little bit tricky with getting everything set up, but we did. We ended up using the MKS carbon arm, and part of that was just for the spacing. So in order to work with the clevis setup and how everything was set up on the surface, that is what we did. So this side is all done. We've run our extension to the landing gear location, and we are ready to install our cover plate. And that side for ailerons is done. All right, and we've got all of our trays painted as well as the inside of the fuselage, and things are looking really good in there. This one here goes right like that. So this is basically the tray output, the one that's in the nose here for something to get mounted to. That's glued into the fuselage, but this one's removable. All the other red ones are going to be removable. So inside of the fuselage, painted, plates painted and sorted out, looking awesome. Now, one of the things I often hear from people, especially on an aircraft like this, is, oh, you shouldn't paint the inside, why bother? It adds too much weight. So on one of the aircraft we've done in the past, I actually weighed it. And it was the Rebel Classic that we did a year and a bit ago. And the paint on the inside, including the speckle finish, added like 35 grams, so like just a hair over 1 ounce, which is nothing. In a case of a plane like this, where you're painting all of the inside and maybe the tanks and bypass and stuff, you're going to be adding probably 1 ounce, so like 30 grams of weight. So sure, you're adding 1 ounce to the overall weight of the aircraft, but I'll tell you what's more important in my mind. Number one, when I look at the inside of a plane, I want it to look nice. And if you don't think it should look nice, that's okay, that's your choice. But I like to look at the inside of a plane like this and see everything clean and neat and tidy and nice and not stained and dirty and ugly. So maybe some of it comes down to pride of ownership. This isn't even my plane, but I know that when this owner gets this plane and opens it up and looks inside, he's going to be happy because it looks fantastic, it's clean and respectable. So if nothing else, enjoying your aircraft and enjoying looking at your aircraft is enough in my mind to paint the inside of an aircraft like this. So while we've got the everything bare, I'm drilling our holes right now. So I just drilled the 2 front holes for the blocks that were already installed. So I'm going to get those screws done, get these screws done, we'll get these screws figured out. The bottom ones are already drilled because we're reusing that one, and then this back one, we also need to drill that one as well. The other thing is, initially I was thinking about putting the air valves up front. I still may do that on the underside, on that other tray that we installed, but this is the tallest valve, and I may put that valve right there. It doesn't interfere with the tank, and it would be nice to have all of our air stuff jammed back here instead of messy in the front. So we'll see how that all works out. That means we can put our fuel pump up front. So there is some different things going on in my brain right now, but we'll figure all that out as we move forward. So I'm going to continue getting the trays drilled and mounted. All right, so just doing some planning here. Initially, my first thought was to put those air valves at the front. The downside to doing that, now that I've taken a look at everything, is it works better if our air valves are back here. So the previous Super Bandit that we did, it was all electric and we didn't have any air valves to deal with. In this plane, we've got air valves. So it's actually going to make more sense to have our air tank mounted in the nose where it's sort of supposed to go. That air line comes back and feeds our air system, which is mounted underneath the tank. On the other Super Bandit, we have our data relay module or ECU underneath the tank, fuel pumps underneath the tank. On this one, we're going to have all the air stuff underneath the tank. One line comes back from the air tank, feeds everything. Of course, we have a fill valve somewhere, which is fine. It's why I like to do a lot of the preparation and planning ahead of time and have a good plan moving forward. So next thing we need to do is figure out our nose. We are still working on our wings, but I need to get this stuff sorted out before we move forward. So we've got our repair to do on the underside of the wing. That needs to be sanded out. We've got our pitot tube to mount in the nose and also our air tank to mount in the nose. So we're going to work through that stuff, but we're going to get back to the wings here in a second. All right, so we're getting ready to install the landing gear back in the aircraft. One of the things you want to do with an older aircraft, obviously with air landing gears, you want to get the cylinders serviced. An easy way to do this, as long as everything's moving smooth and they don't need to come apart, is to take a little bit of silicone lube and you're going to basically drop it on the nipple itself. And all you need to do is move the cylinder and it will suck in some of the silicone oil. And we'll do the exact opposite on the other side. So maybe a couple drops in there, and then as you move this back and forth, it's going to work its way in the cylinder. And then that silicone lube is just sitting inside that cylinder now, and it's going to help condition and seal up the O-ring. This BVM gear is great landing gear, this old purple gear. And even if we didn't do this, it probably would have zero issues, but this is one of those little steps that really helps with the operation of these old retracts. So that's done, ready to go back in. We need to hook our leads up, our airlines up. So this is the point where we set our airline structure. So generally what I'll do is like gear up, we'll use a red line on this side. Gear down can be whatever you want. And then you just keep that same color code pattern throughout the aircraft assembly. All right, so the guts of the left wing are now complete. I'm going to give you guys a rundown here and an overview of everything we've done. So our flaps are all set up, our linkages are all done, we've got our keepers on our clevis, airlines all come to their appropriate location on the root of the wing. We've got our flap and aileron servos coming there as well. A couple changes that we made. One of the air cylinders, the nipple broke, so we put a new air cylinder on this one. The screws coming through covered that in airline. Previously they weren't. And the point of that is just to protect the wires that are sitting on this side and of course the air lines. The screws holding the new flex plates down, we use CA to screw those down, and Loctite to screw these guys into the nuts that are on the back side of the carbon. Installed our keepers on the landing gear here, so that is a nice way for the airline to get routed, and also ended up using some safety wire on the gear side. Now the only reason for that, I don't generally like to do this, but the only reason for that is these BVM wheels are the old 2mm nipples. And of course our airline now is roughly 3mm. So it was fitting fairly loosely on there. Everything else is the normal large size airline. We've got some spiral wrap on this section right there. So when this compresses, it folds into itself, which is perfect. I tried running that a bunch of different directions. So underneath here, through there, this side, and this way was the best way to do it. So we're going to leave the cover off of this wing side, and the point of that is so we can copy everything that we did on the other wing. So we'll be able to just slip that cover over top and screw that down afterwards. But we want to get the other wing now completed to this stage. Last thing we have to do on this wing that we did on the other Super Bandit is put some nuts on our flap screws here. Right there, those three, so they're just going to be 256 screws, and we'll use a little bit of Loctite on those guys just as a little safety measure. And for no other reason other than I just wanted to make some noise tonight and run some turbines. I put the 160 on the test stand and decided to run it tonight just to check and see how much output we're getting, and it performed awesome. Everything works good with the turbine that is going in the Super Bandit. All right guys, so second wing is all complete. I'll just give you a rundown of the interior side here. So it matches the other wing, of course. We've got all of our airlines run to here. We can't do anything with the airlines yet because we're waiting on our connector. And we do have our ash lock connector done up on our root of our wing here. So these put some snakeskin around the wires. That just goes to where the wires terminate. And that's basically it. So last thing to do to these wings is to get the cover on, and we'll do some paint touch-ups, but that'll kind of be one of the last things we do, or we'll do it later. But wings are almost 100% complete. Turned out good, happy with everything. Regarding the ash lock connectors, many people ask where I get my ash lock connectors. Well, we actually have them listed on our website now. So if you go to our website, thelightersideofrc.com, there is a section in our shop or store for ash lock connectors. So we've got the 3, 6, 9, 12, both sides, male, female, and the pins listed in there. And we'll try and keep those things in stock. So where do you get ash lock connectors? Lighter side of RC. All right, some updates for you guys. Wings are done, obviously, we've talked about that. Got the main bypass portion sanded out and painted black. That's going to be black. The cover, sanded that out, and had to do a lot of sanding because there was a lot of heavy paint on here, and like the silver was very orange peeled. So gave that a really good sanding. We'll give it some more sanding, but I also filled in 2 spots here. So we have that spot and that spot. So I just put some tape on here, laid some high sol in there, and then put some tape on the back side. So that'll cure, and we'll get those sanded and cleaned up. So that will get painted red is the plan. Did a couple touch-ups in the fuselage visible from the underside. While I was there, I painted the bottom hatch and the speed brake, so that's done. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get the repair on the nose sanded out. That's where we put our polyester filler in, and we'll start to work on our nose touch-up, our M-speed sensor mounting, and the stuff that's going on right there. All right, so next we're moving on to the bypass here. The rear portion of the heat shield was never installed on a very good sanded surface. So I took a knife and just cut out what I could, took my Dremel and really roughened up that surface. And the reason this is important, I mean, number one, it's important just in general, but especially in this particular installation, because our engine only comes to about this location right here. Ideally, we'd want it to sit back a little bit further. So this needs to be quite heat protected in this case. So we're going to put 3 or 4 layers of heat shield on this area, really focusing on the area that has nothing. And that heat shield is BVM ceramic heat shield. Very simply, just paint it on, let it dry, add more layers. Great stuff. So we got our black touch-up done on the nose. Basically just made a shape. Looks like it belongs there. So we're letting the black cure for a day or two, and then we'll put some clear coat over top of it so it blends in better. So fuselage, we're ready to flip it over and maybe start working on some other parts of the fuselage. So kind of jumping all over the place here, and we've got our first layer of heat shield on there. So we will go over everything. I just wanted to get all the exposed areas done first. And it's important you let that dry. It is water-based material, so we're letting it dry. You can see my fingerprint there where I tried to, or tested if it was dry or not, and it's not dry. So we're gonna let that do its thing and spend some time getting multiple layers. So I think now we're gonna start moving into doing some of our other surfaces. So we can flip this fuselage over. And what I talked about a little bit earlier in the video of painting some areas or touching some areas up. So essentially when we did the paint on the fuselage, all of these bottom openings were prepped off down here. So we didn't have any access to like the underside of the duct and this area up here in the shoulders of the plane. So when the plane was flipped over now, I just brushed on black paint in those areas. So now it's all touched up. And that's really not a big deal. Where or when you see it is when the bottom covers are off. So that's why we did it there. So we're gonna start to work on the back of our plane, moving forward, the front of our plane, moving backwards. Our wings are done, of course. So I'm going to get a new servo lead run for the rudder surface. So that's why I left that one in here. So we'll be able to pull one through and get it routed to where it needs to go in the front. All right, so one critical thing with the Super Bandit here is just the order of putting things together. So I got the rudder servo all installed, hooked up with the pull-pull linkage. That's all awesome. We've got it hooked up to our lead, which has been run. So this lead right now is obviously excessive on the rudder side, but this can just pull through. It's just run on in between the fuselage and the heat shield, or the ceramic blanket that's installed inside the fuselage already. So that's ready to go, but we can't install the rudder until we get the tail cone on, because you've got these little connectors right there. Yes, Flipper. So these little screws hold down the top portion of the tail cone, and so we can't put the rudder on because it covers those screws. So there's a bit of a process here. So next thing we're working on is the horizontal stabs. So we've got one of the servos installed, and pretty simple, awesome setup. This is the standard Super Bandit setup. We're using the carbon MKS arms here, and I've drilled my own hole. We've made a matching set of them, and the stock clevises and everything are perfect for this scenario. So we've got one side set up. Now we're just going to do the other side. Those horizontal stabs need to go on before we put the pipe in, before we put the tail cone on, then put the rudder on. So all those steps are important. All right, so tail section of the Super Bandit is completed. The vertical, horizontal stabs are done. We're going to make a couple changes here. The stock surface pin here, we're going to get rid of the bend and just put a straight pin in, do a couple little changes, but overall the surfaces, tail cones, pipe are all installed, and it turned out wonderful. So the way we complete this for the owner is kind of get everything permanently mounted, so you know everything's Loctited and whatnot, because these surfaces don't ever come off. So now when you're putting the bypass in here for the engine, the pipe actually slides backwards enough out of the turkey feathers and tail cone section, so you're able to get the bypass in there. So now this section is done, and it's basically together. We've got our line here for our rudder surface, and that's long enough to go forward all the way to our plate. All right, and that wraps up video number 1 in the old jet restoration project. Hopefully you guys got some tips and tricks out of this video. We made a lot of progress in this video. We haven't been showing as much details, but just showing maybe some of the upgrades and the changes to this aircraft to make it airworthy by today's standards. Next video, we're probably going to finish this thing up. There's a lot to do still in the organization department and the fine touches department, so stay tuned for that one. And also in the next video, we will be announcing the winner of the fuel jug from RC Custom 3D printing. That contest was in Bronco video number 5. If you're not aware of that, go back and check out the Hangar 9 OV10 Bronco build video number 5 and find out how to enter to win the fuel jug from RC Custom 3D printing. And I just want to give a shout out to channel members. Thank you so much, channel members, for your support. If you're wondering while you're watching this, what the heck is a channel member? Well, channel membership, it's not free, it's a paid thing, but channel members get to see our videos early. So generally we have about 1 to 2 weeks of videos uploaded to YouTube, and channel members get to see all those videos before everybody else. So check out channel membership. There's some links down below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.